of years. I don't really like setting outcome-oriented goals because those tend to be things that you cannot control. So why would you put your hopes and dreams in something that isn't? I mean, you have to think about building communications in a way that grabs and engages people in a short form. The first words out of your mouth have to be interesting, have to promise value, and they should visually see something that promises that value too.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the Franchise Guide.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, the show where we help corporate executives experience time and financial freedom via franchising. We have a very exciting show for you today. But before we dive into the show, I wanted to thank everyone for listening in. You're probably listening to this show towards the end of December, so wanted to wish everyone a great or happy holidays, great season. This is definitely a great time to reflect and review 2024 and goals going out into 2025. 2 episodes ago, we talked about planning for next year and a 24 review. So I encourage you to check that out and let me know your comments. And there's a topic you would like to dive in a little bit deeper. So today we have a very exciting episode, and I'm going to talk about why here in a second. But we have Jason Feifer from Entrepreneur Magazine. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Well, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. Big fan of the publication.
Thank you.
And I'm going to talk about reason why here in a second. Jason Feifer, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, public speaker and entrepreneur. Outside of the magazine, he's the co-founder of the online coaching community CPG Fast Track, also author of the best-selling book, Build for Tomorrow. Podcast Help Wanted is downloaded 1 million times in a month and has a weekly newsletter, One Thing Better, read by 60,000 people. LinkedIn named him top voice in entrepreneurship. So again, welcome to the show. Really impressive stuff. So tell us before we dive in, tell us a little bit of background, kind of what you're up to these days.
Oh boy. Well, I am stretching myself way too thin, which I'm sure is very relatable for everyone who's listening to this right now. So I like to, we're talking here at the end of the year. I like to think about the themes of stretches of time. I think about themes of decades of life for myself. I think about themes of years. I don't really like setting outcome-oriented goals because those tend to be things that you cannot control. So why would you put your hopes and dreams in something that isn't within your grasp? But I do like to think about goals that are oriented around actions. So what actions can I take next year? What actions have I taken this year? So when I think about what this year, 2024, is to me, honestly, this was a year of opportunity growth for me personally. There's a lot happening at Entrepreneur. We'll talk about that. And that's, depending on how you look at it, terrifying or exciting. Terrifying because the media industry is like, rapidly shifting, and that can be really scary, but exciting because that creates all sorts of interesting new opportunities and new ways to think. And so it's been quite a ride. And then personally as well, I've gotten involved in a number of different projects. I co-founded CPG Fast Track, as you talked about it, as well as gotten involved in a couple other organizations. And it was a year of really developing really exciting new connections and opportunities for me. A lot of it driven, I will say, by personal branding. Really, really strongly recommend people get on LinkedIn. We can talk about that because I find that to be an incredible opportunity magnet. Next year is going to be the year of balance for me. So I've said yes to a lot of things. Now it's time to start saying no to things. It's time to stop doing things that I don't think are advancing my goals as much. It's time to start rethinking my processes, rethinking my team, not necessarily the team at Entrepreneur, but the team of people who I work with outside, and trying to find a little more balance. I'd say like all of us, the
Right.
good comes with the bad. We find great opportunities. We stretch ourselves too thin. Suddenly we gets to 2 p.m. and we haven't showered yet. And then we have to step back and think about how we can fix that.
Yeah. Been there, done that. And yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to prioritize things. You can't say yes to everything. And I've been guilty of that. Actually, you know what? I wasn't even planning on talking about it today, but I wanted to touch on it. So you had
Sure.
mentioned LinkedIn personal branding because I just had Qasim Aslam from Solutions 8. We had talked about more of this human to human marketing,
Mhm.
not so much the company brand, but on social, it's really the personal brand. It's the CEO really
Yeah.
publishing content under there.
Important.
Yeah, their personal name. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about that, because that's been a common theme that's been coming up.
Yeah, well, it should be a common theme, and that's because
Mm,
people connect better with people than they do with brands.
right.
And when I talk to founders or executives who are uncertain about what to do with personal branding, do I have something to say? Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I always say that's BS. People, you have plenty to say, and people
Right.
want to hear what you have to say. I mean, just think about the last time that you went to some industry event or you were with your peers and something interesting came out of your mouth that made other people nod and say, that's a really great point. That belongs on LinkedIn. You should
Mhm.
put that on LinkedIn. Of course, you have things to say. To me, the big roadblock that people have when thinking about getting on LinkedIn, and we can talk about all social media, but I think, particularly for the audience that we're talking to right now, LinkedIn
Right.
is most valuable. I think people think, well, but I don't want to put all of myself out there. I don't know that I'm comfortable with that. My answer is you don't have to and you shouldn't.
Mhm.
LinkedIn and all social media and being a public person in any way is not about putting yourself out there. It's not. It is instead about thinking about yourself like a brand. What is a brand? A brand is three things. A brand is something that is simple, it is repeatable, it is scalable. That's what you need to be as a person.
Mhm.
So you need to take the full self, the full complicated, interesting, dynamic, complex self that you are. Let's just say that's 100% you.
Right.
And then you need to identify the 5% of you that is relevant to your
Mm,
audience. I call it the 5% character. Build the 5% character. So this is the part of you that is always relevant, that is always relatable, that is always insightful, that is always talking about the same exact thing over and over and over again.
right.
Because you are not there to make friends and talk about what you got for breakfast this morning. You're there to be useful to a hyper specific audience of
Mhm.
people who will see your content and develop a trust and a kind of relationship with you and will therefore be interested in dot dot dot. Now you fill
Right.
in the blank there. But it has to start with you generating conversation and thinking very narrowly about what it is that you have to offer and then delivering it consistently the exact same way that you do for your brand.
I like that. Video, text works, right? Whatever works best for you. I know you see a lot more video, but that does take a little bit extra work. I always
Yeah.
tell people you don't have to overproduce it. Record the video. The ums and the uhs, those are natural. Leave them in. It doesn't look
Yeah.
overly produced.
No, it doesn't. I mean, look, if you're going to do really short form video, if you're going to try to succeed in a TikTok or an Instagram Reels space, it is worth spending a little extra time and tightening up as much as possible. I mean, you have to think about building communications in a way that grabs and engages people in a short form environment.
Right.
So you have to be thinking about hooks. And you right. So what is the first thing out of your mouth? What's the first thing that somebody sees so that you're communicating to them the answer to this, which so I have this thing I like to call the first question. The
Mhm.
first question is the first question that anybody asks themselves about anything that they encounter. So that is the second that somebody hit play on this episode of this podcast, when you walked into a store and looked at a product on a shelf, when you got an email, literally the first time you engage with anything, what is the first question that goes into your head? You want to take a guess? What's the first question?
I don't know. How am I going to benefit from it? Or
Yeah, more or less.
yeah.
Is this for me or is this
Right.
not for me?
Right.
That's it. Is this for me or is this not for me? It's not even how will I benefit from this? It's even deeper. Is this relevant to me?
Right.
And you as a content creator, and I know that's not a mantle that everyone wants to grab, but
Mhm.
you know what? If you're going to post anything on LinkedIn, you're a content creator, own it. It's fine. Creating content. As a content creator, you need to anticipate that people are going to ask that question the second they see anything that you made, and you need to answer it before they even ask it,
Right.
which means creating a great hook, which means that if you're making a short form video, the first words out of your mouth have to be interesting, have
Mhm.
to promise value, and they should visually see something that promises that value too, even if it's like a little caption that just explains what's coming.
Right.
LinkedIn, I think the same. I think of LinkedIn, I think of being able to write 3 hooks on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
The first is the image that you select or a caption that you put on that image, grabs people, people see that before anything that you write, and then you gotta write this hook at the top, the first thing that you write in a post. It can't be, "Hey, all." It can't be, "I was thinking today." No, none of that. It's gotta be whatever you are offering a value that is going to display very quickly why this is interesting and useful to people, and then also signal to them what will come next if they continue to read. So I will post things like I'll do a lot of like viral video breakdowns, for
Mm,
example. So I'll say, it'll be maybe a video that I found on Instagram of an incredibly great product launch video,
mm,
and I'll say this company sold out of product in 48 hours, M dash, because this video followed the 3 rules of product pitches or something like
right,
that, right? So now instantly you're like, "Oh my god, this video drove a sellout in 48 hours." That's validation.
right.
"Oh, there are 3 rules that are gonna follow that are gonna tell me how this works. I gotta read that." Now people are in, and then I deliver on that value, and then as I deliver on that value, what happens? Well, people are well informed, but also more importantly, people trust me. They
Mm,
trust me. They follow me. They're interested in whatever on earth it is that I'm gonna tell them to do next, which
right.
is often subscribe to my newsletter. I am building authority every single time I do this. I've been at this for a while. I just crossed 200,000 followers on LinkedIn. It has driven
Congratulations.
tremendous,
That's
thank
huge.
you.
Yeah.
It's been driven tremendous opportunity and growth for me. It's something everyone should be thinking about.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't even planning on talking about that, but that's a topic that comes up, very often.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that, and we'll have Jason's information, LinkedIn profiles. Feel free to follow as well, which is always beneficial. Seeing it actually, in action, watching how others post, maybe different businesses and different topics. But I always encourage that as well for any of the guests that we have had on the show. That's a great place to pause. In part two, we'll discuss the Franchise 500 and how AI is impacting the business landscape. See you guys there.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.